So this is pretty much a time-old question, you know, why do girls flake? It's something that so many guys ask me and always on their mind, you know, when they get into this. You know, once they reach a certain level, you know, they start getting numbers and they're trying to convert them and they're trying to get more dates, and they've realized that actually it's kind of hard sometimes, you know. So the way to kind of look at it is that whenever you're going into an interaction, it's always a value proposition ultimately. So, you know, she's going to assess you, she's going to, you know, kind of perceive your value in a way and see if she actually wants to take things further. You know, sometimes she might, a lot of the time she won't, and that's just how it is. That's always how it is, you know. You're going to get a lot of flakes, it's inevitable, you know, no matter how good you get at this, you're always going to experience, you know, a fairly large amount of flakes, just how it is. So yeah, there's a few kind of main reasons for why it happens. One thing I'll say though is that you know, girls flake for the same reasons that they reject, you know. So a lot of these kind of reasons all kind of go hand in hand, but the way to look at it is ultimately a value proposition. You know, what it could be because your value's not high enough, or it could just be that the value that you're bringing is just not relevant to her at that time, you know. But there's kind of three main reasons why, you know, flaking happens. So firstly, you know, this one is like really obvious and, you know, pretty straightforward. It's just because your interaction wasn't good enough, okay? So, you know, there's a million reasons why your interaction was not good enough. You know, maybe you just didn't stop her very well. You know, maybe your conversation was too short. Maybe it was too boring. Maybe it was just kind of too sort of robotic, or felt a bit kind of scripted. Or maybe it was too perfect and then she thinks you do it all the time and then she flakes on you, you know. That happens a lot actually. So a lot of reasons why, you know, your interaction isn't good enough, you know, and a lot of the stuff is, you know, within your control. So, you know, stopping her well, having a long enough conversation, making your conversation actually having a, you know, substance to it, and actually connecting with her in a really good way, to the point where she actually wants to invest and actually does invest and actually cares, you know, to actually, you know, contribute more into for the interaction. So yeah, you basically want to optimize all areas really. Obviously, bear in mind that no matter how well you optimize everything, you're gonna still get loads of flakes, just how it is, you know. But obviously, the more you optimize, the less you're gonna experience flaking. So yeah, so you know, anybody can just go up to a girl and obviously get, you know, ask for her Instagram, and she, you know, good chance she'll get it because it's like, oh, it's got an extra follower. But what we're trying to do here is actually convert these interactions into something more, to the point where she actually wants to see us again. So you have to bring enough value to where she kind of thinks that, oh, okay, yeah, I can actually see myself meeting up with this guy, or actually I actually want to meet up with this guy again. So yeah, so various things that you can control, making sure that your conversations are long enough, you're getting a bit of back and forth, it's not too boring, it's not like interview mode, just asking loads of questions, you're actually piquing her interest, and yeah, you're actually creating a, you know, a substantial conversation, you know. And also bear in mind, you know, you want to be spiking her emotions as well. So, you know, you want to be you know, creating some form of attraction with her. You know, she should feel not just physically attracted, but also mentally as well, you know, doing the flirty stuff, you know, building that chemistry, making it memorable for her in that sense. So that's also another reason. Like, if she doesn't feel it, you know, if it's just like, you know, a nice, pleasant conversation, something that she could have with her uncle or something, it's like, you know, again, the value proposition might not necessarily be there. So that's another thing. And especially with a lot of guys who get into this stuff, they tend to kind of plateau at a certain point where they end up having quite sort of ordinary conversations, and these are the same types of conversations that she could have with her friends, with her gay best friend, with her uncle, you know. And so therefore, you know, she needs to have a reason to want to see you again. So, you know, you want to think about the way you're doing your conversations as well. So yeah, so obviously the conversation aspect is a big deal. You know, you want to be doing that to the best of your ability, really. Another huge thing as well, and a lot of guys know about this, but some are a little bit delusional about this. You know, it doesn't matter how good your chat is, it doesn't matter how good your game is or whatever, you know. Sometimes, you know, if your SMV is not as up to par in comparison to hers, then she's, high likelihood that she's going to flake. So like, so I've seen it so many times where, the guy, if we're being objective, he's like a 2 or 3 out of 10. He's only going for girls who are like 8s out of 10s, So, okay, she might enjoy the moment, she might have a nice chat, he might have an amazing conversation, but when it actually comes to her actually seeing him again, actually wanting to go on a date with him, it's like, is it going to happen? Probably not. So that's another key consideration as well. It's the SMV aspect as well. It's not just when it comes to looks. Obviously looks is huge with this stuff, there's no denying that. Sometimes it is the ultimate factor, and there's no getting away from that. Sometimes there's other things you can do to compensate, depends on the girl. But it's not just about looks, it can also be status or implied status as well. So for example, if you're just approaching posh girls in Chelsea and Kensington in London, for example, and you're some guy with a sort of I don't want to be too stereotypical, but let's say your accent or your the way you're sort of portraying yourself isn't up to her sort of social level, so to speak, again you're going to get a lot of blowout or flakes, and it's going to be tricky, it's going to be difficult. So sometimes there's that stuff as well, and it's not just that, it's also other things as well. So like, you might go to some high-end nightclub in LA or in Miami or something, and the girls there are just looking for a certain type of guy, and you're not quite at that level, in terms of status. And sometimes it can even be in terms of money and career, or social circles and things like that. So these things, it's like, you could argue that some of that stuff is within your control, but some of it isn't, but yeah, SMV is a huge thing. You can obviously optimize and improve your SMV a lot, and that stuff is just as important as the conversation stuff and how you're actually doing the interactions as well. So it's a huge thing. And then of course, there's stuff which is just completely out of your control. It's literally nothing to do with you. It's just her circumstances as well. So very common examples for, she might be seeing another guy, she might have been on a few dates with another guy. She gave you her number because she's still kind of dating, but then she still wants to kind of pursue things with the other guy, so the other guy kind of beat you to it. That's just one example. It could be logistical things. Maybe she's leaving in a few days, maybe she's just really busy, in a really sort of busy period in her life, doesn't have time for dating right now. Maybe she just broke up in a relationship, she needs some time being single. A lot of things like that. Things just completely out of your control. Maybe her goldfish died the day that you got her number, and she's all upset and she doesn't want to reply on her phone. A million things. A lot of things which are just completely out of your control. And the thing with this whole stuff, when it comes to flaking, you're never going to know the answer, right? You're never going to know. I remember back in the day when, like, I was getting a lot of flakes, and at times I even like literally asked the girls for feedback, like, hey, it's cool if you don't want to see me anymore, but I'd appreciate knowing like what was the reason or whatever. I'd say something like some words to that effect, just to kind of really try and figure it out, what's actually going on here. But even if you ask that, she might not necessarily give you the real answer, because a lot of the time when girls flake, they might give out the number even though she's not ultimately that interested. They're doing it to be nice, essentially. Sometimes it's a bit of a white lie, but it's done with good intentions because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And so even if you ask the girl, why do you do it, then they're not necessarily going to give you the correct actual answer, and so you're just never going to know this stuff. So don't overthink it. All the reasons I've given in this video are ultimately the reasons for why it hasn't happened, right? But you're not going to know exactly which one, and that's just how it is. So just improve all areas, optimize all areas, run the numbers, approach a lot, play the numbers game, and that's all there is to it. So don't overthink the whole flaking thing, and obviously bear in mind it is very, very normal to get a lot of flakes. Nothing you can do about it, just have fun with it, accept it, it's all part of the sales process. If you do something, in business, it's very similar as well. Most people that you try and sell your shit to, they're going to reject you, so it's very similar to this, or they're just going to drop off at a certain point, so it's very, very normal. So yeah, don't overthink it, but just kind of optimize all areas. That's all you can do.
Cheers for watching. If you'd be interested in one-to-one coaching with me where we'll go out in public and work on you approaching girls, or more generally with your social confidence, please visit my website ed-game.com.